And yet you toil still in service to men. Your father, your husband, your son. You desire not to be free, but to make a window in the wall of your prison. Have you never imagined yourself on the Iron Throne?
This is not just an insult, it is a diagnosis. It is the psychological checkmate and one of the most brilliant political and psychological duels in House of the Dragon. This crushing metaphor is delivered by Princess Rhaenys, the queen who never was, and it completely dismantles Queen Alicent's entire worldview, exposing her morality of self-sacrifice as a form of ideological bondage. This confrontation is a masterclass in political manipulation, met with principled resistance. It's a high-stakes psychological and political chess match that exposes Alicent's desperate attempt to build a false sisterhood and Rhaenys' absolute refusal to accept a gilded cage. So as always, I'll talk about all those things that make this scene so powerful in detail, but first, we need some context. King Viserys is dead. The Green Council has moved to usurp the throne, and Princess Rhaenys, a staunch loyalist to Rhaenyra, has been confined to her chambers. She is a prisoner. Alicent visits her with a clear, manipulative goal, to secure her support, or at the very least, her neutrality. More importantly, she needs to neutralize the threat posed by her dragon, Meleys, which is the only force in King's Landing that could immediately challenge the coup. The scene immediately establishes that Rhaenys, though a prisoner, holds the power in the room. She does not wait to be spoken to.
I will do you the considerable courtesy of assuming there is a good reason for the outrage of my treatment here this morning.
My sincerest regrets for the lack of ceremony.
The king.
This is a brilliant opening, a masterclass in seizing power while feigning politeness. Rhaenys immediately frames her imprisonment as an outrage, instantly seizing the moral high ground and casting Alicent as a tyrant. The line, "I will do you the considerable courtesy," is a sharp, ironic barb. It implies Alicent's actions are, by default, discourteous and unjustifiable. Alicent's apology is a curt dismissal, an attempt to move past the unpleasantries of the imprisonment. And probably this is the time when everything sinks in for Rhaenys. She officially came to know about this horrible fact of her cousin King's departure. But Rhaenys refuses to let her control this emotional fissure. She responds with two short, sharp statements that demonstrate her complete control of the situation.
And you are usurping the throne.
It was my husband's dying wish. Believe it or no, it is of no consequence. Aegon will be king. I came here to ask your support.
This is a brilliant display of Rhaenys' astute political mind. It cuts right through Alicent's apology for lack of ceremony and proves she is not a confused prisoner, but a political equal who has already solved the puzzle. The immediate follow-up, "and you are usurping the throne," is a devastatingly blunt naming of the crime. Philosophically, Rhaenys is seizing control of the narrative. She is stripping Alicent's impending actions of any moral or legal pretense, framing the entire conversation not as a negotiation, but as a confrontation between truth, Rhaenys, and treason, Alicent. Alicent's exchange is an apex in political layering, starting with a profound manipulation before revealing a blunt, unchangeable reality. Alicent first presents her false justification, the lie that Viserys wanted Aegon to succeed him, to frame her coup not as ambition, but as a sacred, pious duty. By invoking her husband's dying wish, she attempts to seize the moral high ground. She immediately follows this appeal to sentiment with the cold, hard fact.
Aegon will be king.
This line is not a debate. It's an assertion of a new reality, a foregone conclusion. Only after establishing this false moral cover and real political power does she state her objective.
I came here to ask your support.
Reframing a demand for submission as a simple request for an alliance. Rhaenys' response is pure, cutting sarcasm.
Well, I must credit you for your boldness.
This line is a perfect parry. She doesn't engage with the lie. She simply acknowledges the audacity of the usurper standing before her. Alicent, failing to gain immediate ground, deploys her first tactic, a brutal appeal to Rhaenys' personal losses. She meticulously lists the devastating personal and dynastic costs of Rhaenys' loyalty to Rhaenyra, sympathetically, but twisting the knife.
House Velaryon has long allied itself with the Princess Rhaenyra, and what has it gained you? Your daughter dead, alone in Pentos, your son Cuckolded. Rhaenyra's heirs are none of yours.
This is a calculated military political outcome dressed as sympathy. Alicent is twisting the knife, reminding Rhaenys of her daughter Laena's tragic death, her son Laenor's shame, and the deep anxiety that Rhaenyra's bastard sons have stolen her true granddaughter's inheritance. She even adds a final twist.
It is your husband who grasps so heedlessly for the throne, and even he has abandoned you, gone these 6 long years to fight a desperate battle, returning grievously, if not mortally wounded, leaving the Lady of Driftmark to chart her course alone.
This is a brutal act of psychological isolation. Alicent reframes Corlys's ambition not as noble, but as heedless recklessness that has left Rhaenys vulnerable, effectively trying to sever the marital bond that anchors her loyalty. By emphasizing the 6 long years of abandonment, Alicent weaponizes Rhaenys' solitude, painting her as a woman discarded by the very men she protects. Philosophically, she is suggesting that Rhaenys' course is solitary and doomed without a new alliance, positioning herself not as a usurper, but as a necessary lifeline for a lonely widow. But Rhaenys does not take the bait. Her defense is not an argument, it is a declaration of principle.
The word of my house is not fickle.
With this one line, Rhaenys upholds her fundamental oath. She refuses the pragmatic betrayal Alicent is offering. She signals that her integrity and loyalty are not for sale, completely neutralizing Alicent's first attack. Forced to pivot, Alicent unleashes her Trojan horse, a selective honesty designed to create a false solidarity based on shared female grievance.
No, but, dear cousin, you, more than any soul alive, understand what I say now. Princess Rhaenys, I loved my husband, but I will speak the truth we both know. You should have been queen.
This is Alicent's Trojan horse, a masterfully manipulative tactic using selective honesty to disarm her opponent. By making the bold and flattering admission that Rhaenys should have been queen, Alicent validates her greatest public slight, being passed over at the Great Council. Philosophically, Alicent is weaponizing a past injustice to justify a present one, betting that Rhaenys' personal resentment will be stronger than her commitment to principle. She attempts to build a false solidarity based on shared grievance, and Rhaenys' genuine shock,
I little thought to hear those words from you.
I little thought to hear those words from you, proves the disarming effectiveness of the gambit. Alicent presses her advantage, framing the usurpation as an act of shared, pragmatic female duty.
We do not rule, but we may guide the men that do. Gently, away from violence and sure destruction, and instead toward peace.
This is the core of Alicent's false solidarity gambit, an attempt to reframe female powerlessness, we do not rule, as a unique moral wisdom. We may guide the men that do. Philosophically, she is presenting her treason not as a violent power grab, but as a selfless act of maternal responsibility and care for the realm. She's attempting to bond with Rhaenys over this shared duty to prevent the violence and sure destruction she believes male ambition causes, thereby cloaking her usurpation in a noble, feminine purpose. Rhaenys immediately sees the fundamental inconsistency in this false sisterhood. She exposes the coercion hiding beneath the flattery.
It's in the name of peace that you've imprisoned me. And what of my dragon?
If we are overmatched, Rhaenyra will be tempted to strike us and war will ensue. Without your dragon, she may be persuaded to negotiate. If it's Driftmark you want, you shall have it. For you and your granddaughters to pass on as you see fit.
This question is a rhetorical scalpel. It forces Alicent to acknowledge the reality of her imprisonment and reveals that the offer is based on strategic weakness and containment. Alicent is forced to admit the truth. Without your dragon, she may be persuaded to negotiate. Rhaenys has exposed that Alicent's peace is just forced submission. Having dismantled Alicent's logic, Rhaenys now delivers her final, devastating psychological checkmate. She begins by seemingly acknowledging Alicent's shrewdness.
You are wiser than I believed you to be, Alicent Hightower.
A true queen counts the cost to her people.
And yet you toil still in service to men. Your father, your husband, your son. You desire not to be free, but to make a window in the wall of your prison. Have you never imagined yourself on the Iron Throne?
This sequence is Rhaenys' devastating psychological checkmate, She begins by acknowledging Alicent's political cunning. You are wiser, only to immediately reframe that cunning as toil in service to men, dismissing Alicent's entire life of perceived duty as mere patriarchal servitude. The prison metaphor is the final blow, brilliantly diagnosing Alicent's ambition not as a quest for freedom, but as a self-imposed limitation, a desire to merely make a window in her cage rather than tear it down. Rhaenys' final question, have you never imagined yourself on the Iron Throne, is a psychological thrust that exposes the core hypocrisy of Alicent's self-sacrifice, leaving her rattled by confronting her with the very ambition she has suppressed in service to men. Alicent's manipulation fails because she fundamentally misunderstands her opponent. She bases her primary appeal on the assumption that Rhaenys harbors bitter, active resentment. But Rhaenys has long made peace with her past. Her priorities are now fidelity to oaths and uncompromising female agency. Alicent, the quintessential father's daughter who defends patriarchal values, offers Rhaenys a better, more comfortable prison cell. But Rhaenys, the woman who is denied the throne purely for her gender, refuses the gilded cage. She rejects Alicent's morality of self-sacrifice, proving in this quiet, verbal battle that true power is not about guiding the men who rule, but about refusing to toil in their service. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a comment, give a like, and click to subscribe. See you next time.